Good evening, everybody, and welcome back into the show. Got your boy Chris here from an undisclosed location in Alabama, and I got a guest here with me tonight, Shawna Fleming out of Georgia, who is going to tell us a very interesting story, one that I've actually been captivated with for quite a while. Shawna is going to tell us how Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, faked his death and is still alive and well today. Shawna, thanks for coming on, and how are you?
I'm good. I'm peachy.
Well, great to have you on. And so, is it true? Did the king of rock and roll fake his death?
It is as true can be.
And he's alive and well today.
He is alive and well at 86 years old.
Okay, that's my next question. 86. So, let's go back to that day.
Okay.
And let's just start off. Let's see the iPad open up here. I guess it'd actually be the day before, considering how his sleep pattern. So, he slept till 4 that Monday on August 15th. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, pretty much. That was his schedule.
Went to see his dentist at 11. Got back about 12:30 a.m.
Which he got a prescription at his dentist for codeine, which he's highly allergic to, by the way, and we'll get to that. There's a reason why he did that.
So he was not prescribed allotted?
He was prescribed at his dentist codeine for his tooth work. It wasn't dilaudid. He already had that stuff at home.
So that's a strong appeal for toothache. Okay. So he got back around 12:30. Would you dispute any of that?
No, he got back, about 12:30. Mm-hmm.
And around 2:30, he called his doctor to pick up some more pain pills. Is that true? Or
no, I don't believe so. I believe that's when he was starting to play racquetball with Billy Smith and Joe Smith and his girlfriend G at the time. Which, let's not name names of the G. But he was playing racquetball till like 4:30.
It says that he awoke them up at 4, and they started playing around 4 a.m. And then he sat down at the piano around 4:30 and started playing "Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain."
Right, that was the last song he played on the piano. Yes. But when he called his doctor, that has been disputed. Because Doc Nick, as far as I know, already knew what was going to happen the next day. So he was already, walking on eggshells that night, Dr. Nick, because there was very important work that had to get done behind the scenes, when everybody went to bed. So
Elvis,
the call to Dr. Nick was disputed by a few of the people that were in his entourage, which made me realize that there has something about this conspiracy that isn't right, because some people say this and then some people say something else. Nobody ever got the real exact timeline correct when it came to, did he call Dr. Nick? Did he not call Dr. Nick? Did Dr. Nick go in the ambulance when he supposedly was in there? Things like that. So, about his doctor, I'm sure Dr. Nick already knew what was going to happen, because he knew about it. He was in on it too. Dr. Nick and the Colonel knew about what was going to happen the next day. They all knew that.
Okay. Well, they should have had the timeline planned out better then, right?
Yeah, because there's a lot of dispute. There's a lot of people changing it. That's why, if it was the truth, then why so many people changed the timeline? Why so many people that were there? One person says one thing and another person in his circle, like Joe Esposito, says another thing. And then G, his girlfriend at the time, said something different. And it was like, which one is it? Which
Should have got
one?
on the same page.
Well, you would think you would get your story straight if it was the truth.
So Elvis and a lady friend go up to his bedroom around 5 a.m. and he takes a package of pills that his doctor twice daily use, and it looks like
yes, he had a packet. He had a packet 1, 2, 3, and he asked for the packets. But believe it or not, they even know. Stanley noticed every time they gave him a packet, he was on the table nightstand and he wasn't taking them. They knew it. So,
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? We had a little audio blurb. Packet.
Okay, he would get 3 packets of pills every night. Okay, that was his routine. But this night was different. When Billy Stanley came to give him his packet of pills, instead of Elvis taking said packet of pills, he put them on the nightstand by his bed. He wasn't taking them. And Billy Stanley has been interviewed about this. That's why he said Elvis probably committed suicide because, he didn't take all the packets. Maybe he was collecting them all so he can take them all at one time. But those packets were still on his nightstand the day he died. He never took them.
So he was brought packets of pills at 5, 7, and 8 and never took them?
Yep.
At 9:30, he went to the bathroom. Is that true?
Not particularly. There is this, that there was a not package, but there was a truck pulled in and Elvis signed something around 10 o'clock.
Okay.
For something being delivered. And I do have paperwork on that. So if you need me to send it to you, I will. It's hard to send stuff like this. But he signed a package to be delivered at 10.
Hey,
and the package.
Sorry, can you turn the volume down just a little bit? Because it's causing. Yeah, just a little bit. All right, speak for me now.
Sound better?
Yes, that sounds better.
Okay.
Volume up, it blurbs in. Okay, I'm sorry. So you said he signed for a package around 10?
He signed for a package around 10. Okay. And then he came back in and he told Ginger that he was going to go to the bathroom and read. And she, they conversed a little bit. Like, I have my notes here. And I think it was, let me look here. Yeah, he said that he was going to go to the bathroom and she said, don't be long. And he said he won't. And she fell asleep. She had cramps that early morning. So she took some codeine from the nurse trailer behind Graceland. By that time, Elvis had a nurse that lived in a trailer on the property of Graceland. And Ginger went to that nurse to get, her cramp medicine, and she said she slept all through because the medicine made her sleepy. So that's why she didn't wake up till what, 2:30? In the afternoon, because I was down on the floor in the bathroom.
Okay, so according to this timeline, they said she got up at 1:30 and went to the bathroom. And you're saying it's 2:30?
Do you not know when she did get up at 1:30, she had to make 3 phone calls? Do you not have that information? She made 3. She even checked on Elvis.
No, it just says she woke up at 1:30, rolled. Let's see. Well, let me look just here to make sure because I may have missed it. 1:30, felt he wasn't in bed, went to sleep for a few minutes. She called her mother.
Yep.
Just then she got dressed, put on her makeup.
Yep. And you would think a girlfriend that loves Elvis so much would be worried about Elvis, would want to check on him before you put that stuff.
That is kind of odd. Put her makeup on, then walked over to the
I'm thinking to
bathroom.
myself, I'm a woman that's married and I love my husband. So I'm thinking to myself, if he never came back to bed, and I know that he had a problem sleepwalking and taking medications and things like that, I would be so worried when I got up. That would be the first thing that I would do is check on my man.
Well, you
She
think so, wouldn't you?
You would think.
So let's see.
But I mean, I'm not her. I'm not in her place. I'm saying I know I would do something different.
So how long? I mean, I've never. I don't know how long it takes. Slept for a few more minutes. Call her mother. How long does it take a lady to put on makeup? I mean,
well, with her false eyelashes and her curls and her hair, and I mean, and my routine, I'd say it takes about 45 minutes. Put on makeup, do your hair. She had about as much thick hair as I do.
Okay. So, what time do you think? It says right here that when she found him, she got no answer. She pushed the door open, and he was lying on the floor, in vomit, and called downstairs, and
Al Strada, Joe Esposito comes running up.
yes.
Yeah.
And let's see here. What time would that
Joe
be?
Esposito says he tries CPR. They called the hospital to come bring an ambulance. But the thing is, when they come and get the body and they go and everything, they already had rigor mortis. CPR on a body that's already rigor mortis.
I'll pull that down just a hair more. Sorry about that.
No, it's probably my fault. I talk really loud.
So that was my next question. Yeah, they came over and I mean, they bent over his body, tried to breathe some life into him. Father came into the room.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, son, please don't go, please don't die. The man's name you just mentioned said he worked so hard on him, but there was little doubt in his mind or anyone else. Elvis was gone. Face was swollen and purple.
Mm-hmm.
Tongue was discolored, sticking out. The eyeballs were blood red.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to give CPR to him.
Right. But when the ambulance drivers come find the rigor mortis, and there was no way to do CPR. Joe Esposito do CPR on a rigor mortis body. See, it's another lie. Lie about something like that.
Let's see. The ambulance from Firehouse number 29, just minutes from Graceland. Well, they'd walked into a carnage. There was a dozen people standing around crying for someone to help him.
Yeah.
There was no vital signs. He was obviously deceased.
Yes, and the tongue was bit into and purple. That's what they say.
The doctor's name that you called out earlier,
Dr. Nick,
crashed into the gates and jumped into the back, and he started working on Elvis again, yelling, "Breathe, Elvis! Come on, breathe for me." He was working so hard on Elvis's body, and the ambulance man said he had a look on his face like he couldn't believe that he could die. So he's working on a corpse, basically. I mean, it's
yeah. Well, get this. Can I tell you something? When paramedics Ulysses Jones and Charles Crosby were called to Graceland, the home of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, they didn't know what to expect. After being directed upstairs by the bodyguards, they found a man lying on the bathroom floor, surrounded by a group of people. Elvis's girlfriend, G, as well as his road manager, close friend, Joe Esposito, were amongst them. The man lay on his back with pajama bottoms down around his knees and on top, open, exposing dark blue, almost black folds of cold flesh. Jones, the ambulance driver, immediately dropped to his knees to check for signs of life. He found none. Afterwards, both paramedics would tell their captain that day they didn't recognize the man as Elvis. In actual fact, they went as far to say the dead man definitely wasn't Elvis. They were warned to keep that information to themselves. This was the beginning of the conspiracy theories that have spawned decades. And the man, Ulysses Jones, got killed. He fell out of an airplane, man. He died. I don't think he fell. I think someone pushed him. I think they knew a little too much about the truth, and they were what people do.
Who warned them?
His captain warned them. When, as far as I know, if you want more of the story, as far as I know, once the body was took to Baptist Memorial, all the nurses, all the doctors, all the people that were involved in the call had to sign a non-disclosure agreement that they would never talk about what happened that day. And if they did, they would have to keep their stories straight. As far as I know, there are people that have told me that they've signed these non-disclosure agreements and they've kept this secret to this day.
So he was taken to trauma room 2, correct?
Yes.
And how many medical personnel was in there?
I believe there was like 7 or 8. They kept running in. They kept trying to get his heart to start. Each one was trying hardest.
How long did they work on him?
About 40 minutes,
So-
which is like any of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess maybe because they had it in their head that it's Elvis Presley. They're trying to get him to, be responsive. Wake up, breathe, man, breathe.
Oh, yeah. I think anytime when it's somebody of that stature, they're going to do a lot more than they would for me and you. They worked on President Kennedy, after he was shot.
Yeah, they would even work on Kennedy for a longer period of time than they would any Joe off the street.
And I'm sure you've heard of Coach Bryant that was in Alabama when he had his heart attack at 11:54 a.m. and they didn't declare him dead till I think 1:10 p.m. I mean, they worked on it for an hour. Yeah, either of us, 2 minutes, we're dead. Okay, so now we've got what, 8, 10 medical personnel, including
in one room working on one body. So you got Dr. Nick in there trying to tell him what to do too. You forgot. Dr. Nick was in the ambulance with.
Now, these people these medical personnel had no idea what was fixing to take place, right?
No, they didn't. They didn't until the body came through the door. And when it did, that's when the non-disclosure agreements, as far as I know, started getting passed out and whispers started being talked about. Things were like, what's going on here?
Well, they had a body they actually took there, though, right?
Yes, they did. Would you like to know where and how they got there?
That was going to be my question. Because wouldn't they have to time this just right for the body to, a time of death? If this body's supposed to be dead 2 or 3 hours, you couldn't have a body that's been there, 24 hours. Where do they find this body and get it there and time this?
Well, there's 2 ways that they did it. One, okay. Elvis didn't want to stay. He had death threats. He had the mafia after him because of, I'll get to that. I'll read you a statement that will explain that. But anyways, the death threats and the situation that he was in at the time. Plus, he was tired of performing. He felt himself a joke 2 years before 77. He's like, I'm done. I can't go around in jumpsuits being almost 50 years old. What's going on here? And he was already done with that. He was very upset and he was in an unhealthy situation. The colonel was working him to death and he just couldn't handle it anymore. But the truth part of it was he was done, and he was scared for his family because of the death threats, and he needed to find a way. He was on late night telephone calls with Howard Hughes. Do you know the story of Howard Hughes?
Oh, I know the story of Howard Hughes.
Do you know that he also faked his death, that he used a stand-in that was completely crazy, wigged out of his mind, while Howard Hughes got to work on a lot of CIA and FBI projects that helped us get technology like we have today?
I'm not aware of that story. Sounds very interesting, though. But let's come back to this now.
There is a book, my source, there is a book out called Boxes. And it's the story behind the scenes of Howard Hughes on what he was up to and why he needed a stand-in to be completely senile, incoherent, while he actually did stuff very brilliant behind the scenes. There's a book. I digress. What I'm saying is he had late night phone conversations with Howard Hughes, and Howard Hughes told him how he could fake his death. And with the help of the FBI, because he was getting death threats, they helped him too. Dr. Nick found a man with bone cancer, stage 4. And the man was kind of poor, didn't have any insurance, needed a way to feed his family. And Dr. Nick and Elvis got with them and said, if you get a little plastic surgery and we dye your hair and Larry Geller does your hair real good and stuff, we could pass you off as Elvis. And you can help a man leave the scene while you can help your family after you die. And he agreed to feature.
Hold on. Slow down for me 1 second, okay? All right. So they found this man who was dying.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI and the doctor and whoever found this man, and they talked him into getting plastic surgery.
He didn't have to get a lot. Now, granted, he didn't have to get a lot of plastic surgery. Dr. Nick said he was kind of similar with the cheekbones and stuff. He only had to do his nose a little bit above the eye line.
I'm sorry. Hey, can you talk just a little bit lower for me? Because sometimes it comes in, it messes that up. So say that one more time. The cheekbones, what now?
This man that had bone cancer looked a little Elvis, but not completely. He had to get surgery to fix his nose, fix his mouth, and a little above his eye line.
How long did that take?
Not very long. According to my source, Elvis paid for it. Paid for all of it.
Stuff. I mean,
well, the guy was dying of cancer, but when you go get facial surgery, just a little bit nose job, a little mouth job, I mean, he didn't die yet of cancer. He was just in the process of, dying. But it took about 6 weeks to heal. And my source tells me that the guy didn't get to his complete deathbed. He said that Dr. Nick kind of helped him like Dr. Kevorkian helped people, and timed just right and took his life just at the right time for the body to be switched.
Okay. So first question, I'm guessing this man had to be somewhere around the same age, height, and
yes. Build? Yes. In fact, he was a little bit, at the time, he was a little bit puffy and bloated. And Elvis, I was told, ate a lot of ice cream and a lot of snacks to make himself also like the guy that was dying. Because he gained a lot of weight that last year. Don't you agree?
I would agree. So,
he went from 178 to 250 pounds in a year, man.
When did they first approach this guy about doing this?
Well, the guy gave Dr. Nick his harsh story, according to my source. And Dr. Nick went to Elvis about it. And Elvis said he wasn't sure. And about a couple of weeks later, they got together again, and Elvis was complaining that he can't be in the situation that he's in, and he agreed. And that's when the process began. And I think it was sometime, since it is August, we're talking about when it was done, I would have to say sometime around February, maybe March of
So, I mean, you're taking a pretty big gamble.
Starting
there, right?
with and the man's name. Excuse me. What? I'm sorry.
That's a pretty. I mean, that's a pretty big gamble. Unless you had it planned out earlier. I mean, you're taking a pretty big gamble there. If the guy's dying in February and you're trying to make him.
Well, he wasn't like Dr. Nick was a full-on doctor. He would know how many months this man had left. So I even know that through a source that the man died a little bit before his time too. They think that he was working at him so they can have that body fresh, ready to go. Because autopsy would say something, wouldn't it, if it wasn't fresh?
Right. Yeah, because that's what you answered that question there, because I was going to say, I've heard doctors say, 2 months somebody lives 2 years, 2 years.
And if he died a week before or something and they put him on ice. So on the autopsy.
So the man was still alive and the doctor fixed up a concoction for him and that day. So what time?
That night, not that day, that night. It had to, with the timeline, I would have to say when Elvis signed that thing that came to his house about 10 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock a.m. morning, he was signing for that body to be delivered. And I know by sources, they tell me the body was put in the pool house until it was ready to be moved. And it took the guys to help move it up there. And see, Ginger G was asleep on pain pills because she was cramping. She wouldn't have heard that. She was on medication. She was out like a light. She wouldn't have heard anything.
Okay, so the man committed suicide that night, and what time did he do that?
Well, according to my source, for him to sign for the body at 10 a.m., I was told that sometime between 6 and 8 a.m. is when he stopped Scott Holloway's heart. And that's the name of the man, was Roscoe Holloway.
Roscoe Holloway.
From Tennessee. According to my sources, his name was Roscoe Holloway.
Okay, so between 6 and 8, he left this mortal coil, and then the body was delivered. I mean, where did this take place at? That's pretty quick delivery.
But you know what's crazy? With the help of the FBI, the body was delivered by mail truck. It was a mail truck that came to Graceland. It was a mail carrier that sent Elvis the paper to sign for it to be delivered. The FBI can do whatever they want, man. They're part of the government.
Okay, so
I mean, it wasn't just a truck and some people, and people are actually seeing it happen. It was a mail carrier truck, so it wouldn't be suspicious.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, do you know where the body was picked up from to be delivered?
No, that part was, believe it or not. And if you're going to ask me, was that the body that was buried in the coffin? No, it wasn't.
Okay. Before I get to that, how much did this man get paid for this?
I was told that he had packets of money delivered in different designations across certain parts, delivered by, and G. Lacker, one of his entourage, and Billy Smith would put the body, but it was enough to help his family because he wasn't going to be around no more.
Okay. You cut out there for me a little bit now. How much money did you say? You said there was stuffing bags of.
There was packets of money delivered in certain locations by a couple of his entourage secretly for that family, but it was never told to me how much that family got. I do not know. I'm sure they got enough because you never heard anything about them afterwards. enough for him to hush up.
Okay.
I also know that his family, the Holloways, also signed non-disclosure agreements from the FBI to keep their mouth shut till they hit the grave. And I also know that his entourage that knew, because I know the people who know, the ones that knew he faked his death, like Dr. Nick, the Colonel, his dad, Joe Esposito, Larry Geller, Billy Smith, those people, they signed a non-disclosure agreement from the FBI as they supposed to keep their mouths shut until they die. In fact, they have done everything possible to discourage the fact that Elvis is alive. They've called people like us freaks, weirdos, stupid heads. Why are you thinking this? Oh, it's sacrilegious to think Elvis lives. But they've done everything they could to discourage people like us. But the thing is, wouldn't that be what they would do if they had to sign a non-disclosure agreement? You know, say whatever story that makes him dead. And their stories have changed throughout the years too. Consistent. And as far as I know, in the law enforcement agencies, if your story is consistent, always you're telling the truth. If your stories are inconsistent, you're not telling the truth.
But
and a lot of times it's not the right timeline that they give.
But wasn't somebody in this conspiracy that signed, wouldn't they just, man, this is too good to pass up. Go out there and just blab. I mean,
you mean just say screw it to the wind and blab it to the world and tell them exactly what happened? You would do that? But I tell you, one person did try to do the story very well, and he had to redact everything he said. Billy Smith and Marty Lacker told a magazine in 1979 a funny story that Elvis is alive, that Elvis faked his death, that Elvis left Graceland that day in a camper with a woman named Alicia. Why would they do that? You know, and then they redacted it. In a newspaper, you can Google it. I can Google you the article now.
Right. Tell me about this guy who fell out of an airplane now.
Oh, Ulysses Jones. Yes, he died. He fell out of an airplane. The paramedics that told his captain that this guy does not look like Elvis. He died. He fell out of an airplane. I don't think he fell out of an airplane. I think he was pushed.
I've never heard of that as a cause of death before, falling out of an airplane. Okay, so
well, think about this. He's a paramedic, right? Paramedics shoot people in helicopters. It's not an airplane. He fell out of a helicopter.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of weird that he falls out of a helicopter a couple of years after he started trying to tell people that the man that he took to the hospital was an Elvis. See, he had a big mouth.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know. I would have to. I don't know if I can keep that secret. I mean, I have to.
He was telling people, he was telling his colleagues, he was telling everybody he could that would listen. He was saying, listen, man, the guy that I brought to Baptist Memorial Hospital as Elvis isn't Elvis, man. He didn't look nothing like him. And within about a year of him blabbing his mouth, he falls out of a helicopter. It's like, what?
Okay, so these two guys that tell the story, nothing happened to them. They didn't get killed. Just
excuse me. Well, the one paramedic, but the other one kept his mouth shut, and he didn't.
I mean, the two guys that told the story, and they had to redact it. They didn't. Nothing happened. They're okay.
No, they didn't. One was Elvis's cousin, and one was a friend. No, they didn't get killed. They just redacted their story, and I think the story. Listen, but this is what's crazy. Billy Smith redacted his story about a few weeks before he got hired at Graceland to be a tour guide in 1980. I think personally that EPE, which is Elvis Presley Enterprises, paid him to shut up. Redactory, man.
Okay, so how many people are in on this conspiracy now?
As far as I know, enough people are in on this this conspiracy because there's talk about it in the circles that I'm in. It's a constant. It's like, I don't even know the whole list, but I know it's enough people, and they change their stories so many times that why can't they just tell the truth? I'm not talking about why can't they tell the truth of Elvis's life. That's not what I'm saying. But why can't they keep their story consistent? Why so many inconsistencies?
So, Sean, I know you've heard the old saying, the only way three people can keep a secret is if two of them are dead, right?
Yeah,
So,
I know.
that's
But
a
there
lot of
have been some people.
quiet,
There
right?
have been some people mysteriously died over certain degrees on this whole issue. I mean, not a lot of people, but enough to make people quit talking. Like if you were knowing the truth and a couple of people you know died mysteriously, wouldn't you know to keep your mouth shut in case you're next?
Yeah, probably.
Or what about, since the FBI is, like I said, my sources, if the FBI is involved in this, okay, wouldn't it be something so big that keep your mouth shut? Just keep it shut.
Okay, so let's go back. It was announced to the world at what, 4 p.m. The king is gone?
No, 3.
3?
It was 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. It was 2:43 when they knew it in the hospital. By 3 o'clock, they gave him 15 minutes. By 3 o'clock, they announced to the world. But I will tell you something. If you go to the Tennessee Museum and you go look at their footage archives of that day, you will see at 15 a black helicopter going behind Graceland and stopping for maybe 2 minutes and then leaving the grounds. This is the helicopter that Elvis jumped on to get away.
This is what time now?
At 3:15, not but 15 minutes after it was announced that he died, there was a black helicopter, and there is aerial footage of this helicopter. And if you go to the Tennessee Museum, not the museum, but the Tennessee Library, and look up the archives, you will see the footage, the old 8mm footage of the helicopter. And Larry Geller, one of his greatest friends, said, quote unquote, he saw that helicopter. And he didn't know why it was there. It only was there for 2 minutes. And it was only for Elvis to jump on it and get out.
All right, so you know the timeline's a little off then, right?
For which one?
Well, they've got him arriving at the hospital at 2:56 p.m.
They announced him dead at 3 o'clock. It said in the newspapers.
Okay, I'm just going by what they gave me here.
I can understand. But even if it is 2:56 and they announced his body, there is a black helicopter at 3:15 behind Graceland. That's not disputed.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that at all. I'm just going by just that's because I'm trying to get timeline. I guess it really doesn't matter about what time it was announced. That's
yes,
there.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's announced. We'll just say that. The world found out, the world starts mourning. But during that first, revelation that he could be dead, that's when a black helicopter comes behind Graceland. It's like...
Was he the only one that left on the helicopter?
Yes, sir. As far as I know, he's the only one that left, and he didn't take anything with them.
Anything with him?
And the stuff behind him. The colonel brought his stuff later. I'll just say that.
All right. So let's see. Let me go back up here. So it was announced, and then he's gone, and so they started an autopsy, right?
Yes, they did.
And this went on for
very funny. They announced what he died of before the autopsy was even finished.
Yeah, that was going to be my first question. How did they know he died of a cardiac arrhythmia before they went on the autopsy?
Well, because they had to say something. It's not Elvis. If it were Elvis, I can understand, but the autopsy yet. So how could they? And they didn't even know yet. They didn't even have the toxicology report in yet.
No, yeah, absolutely not. Let's see.
The
So
way they did that always kind of made me question, why would they say how he died when they weren't finished with the autopsy? That was just one of the questions that always fit in my head.
by the time his name starts with a W, got back to the hospital before 7 p.m. They were just now about to start the autopsy.
And what autopsy only takes an hour to do? I mean, it was just fast.
And then the doctor he's talking about said possible unnatural cause of death, and they were worried about a public inquiry.
Yeah. But I mean, you do know that Elvis was a DEA agent, right? You do know he went to Nixon to get all those credentials, correct?
I'm familiar with that story, yes.
And the FBI infiltrated his band by 1972. They were in his band with him because they were trying to find some very bad people, and they needed to be in his band to do so. The FBI already knew all about Elvis during this time. If Elvis needed help by the FBI, he could have got it. He had that ability. He was a DEA agent. Nixon knew him. Jimmy Carter was his cousin. You know, all that. If Elvis wanted something, he could do something.
So I was sitting here and I thought I had so that no mistakes could get out. They were worried about that.
Yeah, why? Why are they so worried? Why? Why would you know? I mean, another question you should ask yourself as a journalist. Why?
What mistakes were they worried about? So this autopsy went on for hours. Is what they're saying.
But why give out the autopsy results at 8:00 p.m. when they're still working on them? Just doesn't make no sense.
And
there's a lot of things that make you wonder. Okay, that's all I mean.
Let's see here. So they found that. Sorry, I'm just making sure I've got everything back here. Let's see. He had heart disease.
Yeah, they're saying that
there was no heart disease. So did he have heart disease or did he not? I mean, that's just kind of going. They're kind of going back and forth on this.
They're going back and forth, so that should also make you wonder about the situation, because did he have heart disease? Did the pills he took, and it was hard for him to go to the bathroom most of the time, and he took a lot of cortisone shots so he could, his joints were hurting so bad, he took cortisone shots, and everybody knows that cortisone makes you puffy. It does. It makes you puffy. It makes you bloated.
Because they're saying that, liver damage, but just with anecdotal evidence.
Liver damage goes with the pill taking, yes.
Yeah, because that's what they are hammering away here. A middle-aged man with no history of heart disease, but pills.
Just pills, yeah.
And they're even speculating he could have been straining. They couldn't rule out the possibility of anaphylactic shock.
Are you saying he got on the toilet and strained so bad to get that poop out that he had a heart attack?
I'm not saying that, no.
No, that's what they're trying to say, though. I mean, it's pretty embarrassing. They're trying to make stuff up.
And it says that they were satisfied, the pathologists were satisfied to wait for the lab results, which they were confident would overrule Dr. somebody's name with a meaningless announcement, as indeed they eventually did. So they overruled the announcement.
Yep.
So the first one was that he died from the heart problem. And then the next one is that it was drugs that caused him to die.
Elvis didn't take drugs. Now, Elvis took prescription medication, but it was prescribed by doctors. He tried marijuana once in the 60s, and he tried LSD once to find out what it was, and he realized he wasn't into that stuff. And he only prescribed medication.
I meant to say, when I said drug, I meant prescribed drugs.
Gotcha.
They're saying that taking all these prescribed drugs affected his central nervous system.
And then you've got nurses saying after they read the autopsy report that those medications found in the toxicology report wouldn't have killed him.
So they really don't have a cause of death, right? I mean,
well, I'll tell you what, his real autopsy is still locked up. We can't get it yet.
No, it will not be released.
It will not be released until 2050 something, and waiting on it. Why do we have to wait on it? Why is it still hidden?
His autopsy will not be released till 20. Interesting. There's been lawsuits, legislative actions, medical disbarment. And over this.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It keeps making you wonder, like. Yeah, something's not right here. It makes my mind start going. You know, there's too many questions.
Yeah. What's taking place in this autopsy room? And these doctors, they're getting in there and they're like, what do we say? This guy's got this body's got cancer, but we got to come.
Well, another reason that this is my theory now. I mean, don't condemn me, but this is my theory. My theory is one of the reasons why the autopsy, the real one, is still locked up.
Yeah.
Is because and they can't tell us that. And the world would freak out if they knew they were being lied to. And God forbid government lies to them. I mean, hell, look how they act when you tell people there's a pandemic and they buy all the toilet paper. How do you think you're going to act when you tell them, hey,
Shawna, go back for a minute.
Lying to you.
Shawna, you cut out for a minute. Your theory is what now? The reason it's locked away is?
My theory of the reason why it is locked away until a certain time is it wasn't really Elvis. And God forbid, because it would freak them out. You know how they act. You know, you tell them the government lies to them.
So
you tell them.
They go back and start making funeral arrangements, right?
Huh?
They go back to Graceland and start making funeral arrangements?
Yes.
And
it was a very fast funeral arrangement. How in the world did they get all those white hearses in Memphis, Tennessee, very short period of time?
Yeah, they buried him the next day, right?
They were, close enough. Day and a half.
So there was a lot of people who had known him and everything. They didn't even get to come to his funeral, correct?
I have people that can testify and witness that they were called by Vernon themselves and told, don't come.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So, did they have a open casket?
They had the casket open, but there was a rope in front of it. You couldn't touch it or nothing for the general public. Mm-hmm. And testimony was very strange about that casket, too. Like, do you know the country singer Tanya Tucker?
Oh, of course.
Everybody knows Delta Dawn. That girl.
What's that power?
She went. And the very first thing that she said after she saw Elvis in the casket was, 1, that's not him. 2, very cold air coming from that area. And 3, dead bodies don't sweat. It was misting water off the face.
So what? I've heard those things, which you just told me. What was in the casket?
According to Gene Smith, which is cousin, it was a wax dummy. And have you ever saw the video footage of the entourage holding the casket, putting it in the mausoleum?
I don't think I've seen that.
Okay, you're gonna see, and watch it when we get done. You're gonna see 12 grown men having a hard time carrying one casket up a couple of stairs. The cat ate so much because there was an air conditioner unit run by batteries inside of that thing so the wax dummy wouldn't melt.
Ah, okay. That's for the sweating.
I mean, how does 12 grown men that were his bodyguards, big muscle men, have a hard time carrying one casket?
Why don't I have a closed casket funeral?
They had the open casket to show the world he was dead, because the mafia, as far as I know through my sources, the mafia that were to know he was dead. They wanted
Shawna, you cut on with the mafia.
to start getting his family. It was about the mafia. They needed to show a body. They needed to show a body. He could have had a closed casket, yes, but they needed to show the body in order for these mafia members to know that he was dead.
Okay, so they had an open casket to show the mob members. I mean, okay.
I can tell you where they got the wax dummy from.
Okay.
See what after Roscoe Holloway got the autopsy done on him, they buried him in his family plot, undisclosed location, under Scott Holloway, his name. Okay, so nobody knew that they do have my notes telling me where exactly they got that from. It was a wax museum in Georgia that was going out of business. Have you ever been to Georgia here?
I've been to Georgia. Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever been to the Atlanta Underground?
I have.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people have, and I'll tell the audience in case they don't know. There's a place in Atlanta called the Underground, and after the Civil War, instead of bulldozing it down, they just built over it, right? They just built over all of it, and it's called the Underground. Now, hold on a minute. Let me read you this. Maybe you might understand something, okay? This is written by my source. When I say my source, I mean the person that I believe to be Elvis, okay? Just bear with me. He wanted you guys to know this, and this is part of it. This is the truth, and it is fact. This was not Elvis in the casket. It was a wax dummy. Wax dummies don't have DNA. That is exactly what was in the 900-pound copper casket, along with a portable AC unit to keep the wax head from melting. Everyone that observed the body in the coffin noticed that the forehead had beads of sweat around it. Gene Smith, Elvis's first cousin, said that the sideburns had been glued on and kept coming loose during the visitation, and they had to keep putting them back on. Gene also stated that everyone could feel the chilled air all around the casket that was coming from the AC unit within the coffin. When Gene asked Vernon where Elvis was, Vernon replied, "He's safe. Don't worry. He's upstairs. We had to put something on display for the fans." Elvis did not die August 16th, 1977. Elvis is still alive. No one is actually buried there in the meditation garden in the back of the mansion. That's just what the fans, the non-believers, and the tourists all think. All of Elvis's family members that have passed on are buried somewhere else on private cemetery away from there. Vernon would never want his body trampled on. Elvis is very much still alive. He never really stopped making his music. He has been recording and making music all this time. He just can't release any of his new songs using his name anymore because Elvis Presley Enterprises, etc., and RCA. He has been using different aliases ever since. The facts are there for all to believe and to accept. Elvis Aaron Presley is now living as John Burroughs and several other various aliases. He staged and faked his death with the help and knowledge of Colonel Tom Parker, Dr. Nick, Joe Esposito, and Howard Hughes in the FBI. The FBI, by doing a body swap with a terminal bone cancer patient, Roscoe Scott Holloway of Germantown, Tennessee, of whom Dr. Nick had located after some minor cosmetic surgery they made, Roscoe Scott Holloway looked a little more like Elvis's double, which fooled the paramedics, the hospital personnel, and most family members. Elvis, aka John Burroughs, was a U.S. special federal agent that worked undercover in various sting operations. In fact, if you go on the FBI.com or .org site, you can find that there is a John Burroughs that have worked for the FBI and has signed paperwork. Also, I'm almost done. Sting operations against known members of the SDS Weather Underground Terrorist Group. The SDS Weather Underground Terrorist Group was responsible for multiple bombings of police department, federal and state courthouses, and other public buildings during the 1960s and 1970s. Bill Aries was the SDS leader of the Weather Terrorist Group, along with his cohort, Bernadine Ray Dorn. And also, hold on, I'm going to go down to where it says about where it was that he got in trouble here. This AKA federal agent John Burroughs was a government secret witness in Operation Fountain Pen. And you can look up Operation Fountain Pen online if you want.
Slow down for me 1 second, okay? I just don't want to get too far ahead of me here.
I'm sorry. So, I might be reading too fast, too.
That's way too much to take at one time. Okay. So, John Burroughs was a federal agent that was in on.
Actually, he still is. According to FBI.org, he's still alive. And Elvis did use the name John Burroughs to meet Nixon, by the way.
Okay. So John Burroughs is still alive.
Yes.
And he was an informant, or he worked for the FBI?
He was an informant at first. And then
he got the sting operation and he goes, who knew?
SDS Weather Underground.
And who were they?
Look up Bill Aries.
Okay.
The friend of Barack Obama in college. Look him up. He had a lot in the 60s and 70s blowing up courthouses. He was an anarchist.
All right.
The FBI were trying to get him a long time.
Okay. So make sure I'm tracking. So they just how was he chosen to be the one that
brought him down?
Huh?
Why was he the one that was chosen to bring him down, to put him in prison?
No. That Elvis took his name.
Why did Elvis take John Burroughs' name? That is a very good question. I guess he just liked the name. He used it a lot. He used it when he went to Hawaii with his wife in the 60s and 70s. He also used John Carpenter because it was in a movie of his. And he was very fond of John Burroughs for some reason. And he would use John Burroughs to go spend time at the Hilton or anywhere else that he wanted to go incognito in the 70s. He just liked the name.
Okay. So let's go back to
the wax dummy. I finally found where I need to be. But let's see. I was talking about the underground in Atlanta. Okay. The underground in Atlanta in 1977. There was a wax museum that was going out of business down in the underground. Vernon and a couple of guys that worked for Elvis came in and bought a life-size figure of Elvis in Georgia, in Atlanta, in the underground, because it was being auctioned off. They made the purchase, and on the way out the door, after they loaded the truck, Vernon Presley turned to the guy at the museum and said, "Hey, wait till you see what we're going to do with this."
Now, Shawna, that's kind of putting it all out there, ain't it? Why would they just?
He didn't say exactly what. He just said, "Look what
Right. Well, why,
That's what we're
I,
going to do with
I,
this.
I understand, but why wouldn't they send somebody to do that instead of putting yourself out there?
I don't know. Elvis liked his entourage and his father. If he needed to get something done, he would send his most loyal people, his dad and a few of the entourage. He wouldn't have brought any stranger in on something so important.
Okay.
With people he trusted.
All right. So, sorry, I'm trying to keep up here with this. So they went back and bought this wax dummy.
But Gene Smith, even to this day, Gene Smith, before he died, he never wavered. He always tried to tell everybody it was a wax dummy, but everybody kept saying how crazy he was.
Okay. Now the rumor started almost immediately, right?
Yes.
I remember, didn't a certain country music singer say something about him faking his death and come back later?
J.C. Riley. She did the Harper Valley PTA.
I'm thinking more of a Merle, I believe was his name.
Who?
Merle.
Merle Haggard?
Yeah.
He always believed it. And he told a few friends of his what he believed, but they would just laugh him off like it was some joke. He doesn't believe you. Everybody's gonna like people are gonna watch this interview of me and you. And even though I believe it with my whole heart and you're kind of biased on it, they're gonna laugh thinking, oh God, another quack. They don't want to believe. Even when you try to give them some kind of facts, like why so many stories? Why so many people in his inner circle changed their stories? I mean, I'm a daughter of a law enforcement family, and everyone that I know in law enforcement.
Okay.
As long as you're telling the truth, your story's the same.
Right. Okay,
when you lie, that's when it changes.
Okay. So let's go for a moment. Let's step back a few months prior. Didn't he stop buying those sequin suits a few months before?
Yes, he did. And he always bought suits for his tour. He was to go on tour.
He bought he bought 2 new ones a month, correct?
Yes. And he didn't buy any. None. And he had a tour. Remember, the next day, he was supposed to leave for a tour the next day. If he hadn't, left. He would have been. So you would have thought he would buy some new suits,
Okay, so tell me about a few months after he died. There was this entertainer that showed up in Vegas that sounded like him, but kept his face. And there was a book that was written, I believe, about.
Yeah, we're gonna go on the Gail Brewer Giorgio story. This one's cool too. Okay. You're talking about him, aka Jimmy Ellis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The guy in the mask.
Yeah, the guy in the mask. And so this guy comes out here and does several performances, and they try to get a glimpse of him and couldn't, and then all of a sudden
he did it for a couple of years, and he traveled, and people loved it, and they thought it was Elvis.
And this book disappeared off the shelves too, right?
The Colonel Tom Parker did everything he could to try to buy as many copies of that book to get it off the shelf.
So was that the King?
No, it was Jimmy Ellis, but it was Elvis it was 2. It was 2.
Okay, so I thought that was a cool. I was on that,
Jimmy Ellis in the beginning, but Elvis, there was a gimmick. Elvis did some of the stuff. And I put that in my show last Friday. I even played a song of Jerry Lee Lewis doing a duets album. He never said who it was. He didn't even say it was Orion. He said duets. And this guy comes in and they do a song together, What I'd Say. And at the end of the song, Jerry Lee Lewis says, plain as day, oh, you're good tonight, Elvis. Now, why would Jerry Lee say that if it wasn't Elvis? It's kind of strange, right? Kind of strange. And I mean, anybody can look up that song on YouTube if you wanted to. I mean, it's What I'd Say. It's Jerry Lee Lewis duets. And it's enough to get you to wonder.
Okay, that's very interesting
But
there.
I mean, that's not the only thing. I mean, after the 80s, when Orion stepped down and told the world he was Jimmy Ellis, Elvis wanted another way to bring out his music. So he found a way with Sively Nora. Have you heard about Sively Nora?
Well, I'm not familiar with her.
It's a guy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sively is Elvis spelled backwards.
Oh, I've got it. I got it. Okay, I've got it.
Elvis liked doing that. He liked playing with your mind a little bit. But he put out Sively Nora, and he talks to this reporter in 1981, and his back is to the camera, and he's playing, showing him his voice. And you can see the reporter's eyes, and he knows he's staring at Elvis Presley. And he's telling everybody he's Elvis Presley. And the music coming out of his mouth is the proof, because he sounded just like Elvis. And he even talks in between recordings, like the day Ronald Reagan was shot, there's a recording of Sively Nora doing something with the reporter singing a song. And he goes, hold on, I believe Ronald Reagan has been shot, you know? And he talks about it in real time. And it made a lot of people think, oh my God, Elvis is alive because of this.
So, is this story right here true?
What?
They've never cashed the insurance policy.
No.
Really?
Or cashed the insurance policy. They would be in trouble if they did that. That's fraud.
How much is that insurance policy worth?
Like $1 million.
Only $1 million? Okay, well, I mean, that's still
Elvis, my source told me that when he left, he took out all the money out of his bank account but a little bit, and then he put money, Howard Hughes told him to put money in this new up-and-coming movie industry, being Elvis, and that was company, right? Orion Pictures.
I'm sorry. You cut out on me. The last thing I heard was something about put his money in pictures, and then
yes,
what was that?
Before he left, Howard Hughes told him how he could accumulate money while he wasn't being Elvis Presley anymore, and he told him about this new up-and-coming production movie company called Orion Pictures, which produced lots of movies in the 80s and 90s, by the way. One of those movies was RoboCop 1 and 2, and they also have references in Elvis in that. Another movie from Orion Pictures, which is so fun, Heartbreak Hotel, which had a parody of Elvis in that one. And another movie of Orion Pictures that came out was Great Balls of Fire, the story of Jerry Lee.
I wasn't aware of this.
Yes, and isn't it kind of funny? Orion Pictures is close to Orion the Entertainer. And it's just a lot of questions. A lot of questions. Of course, I don't question more because I've got answers that I need, but I know the world has, questions. And I can't answer them all tonight. If you ever want me back, I'll come back. It's just, there's so many questions I used to have, and if you just go looking and you talk to the right people, you can get the answers. But you have to talk to the right people.
All right, Sean. So, Elvis faked his death, according to the story. The insurance policy was never cashed. Now, the other question I had was, is it true that the name is misspelled on the on the tombstone?
Spelling on the stone. That should give you the biggest clue of them all. That's not how he spelled his name.
And if I recall correctly, Vernon went to great lengths when he was a child to make sure the name was spelled correctly on the birth certificate, right?
Yep. And you know what's also crazy? Elvis was in the armed forces. Why didn't he have an American flag draped on his coffin when he died?
Yeah,
Elvis was a patriot. He loved his country. He loves his country. Why? Well, because it wasn't right. If you're not really dead, why would you want to disgrace the army by putting a flag on your coffin when you're not in the coffin. That's what I think.
Huh. Okay. So let's go back
You know,
to.
even when Johnny Cash died, they put a flag over his coffin.
That's true. All right, so let's go back to for a moment. Ellis became, what was this about, an agent for the under Nixon?
DEA agent. Some people say it's because he wanted to be able to fly in his planes with his guns and his pills and not get in trouble with the law enforcement. But the real issue was he really loved his country and he didn't think illegal drugs was a good scene. Yeah, he did pills. Yeah, he was high on pills when he talked to Nixon to get the, DEA agent badge. But to him, illegal drugs were worse than anything on this planet, and he wanted to help.
Is it true that he stopped a plane from taking off one time because it used his badge?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. See, he had a guy working for him called Hamburger James, and he called him Hamburger James because his job was to get him hamburgers or any fast food. That was his job. Just go get us something to eat. He was the go fetch getting something to eat guy. Well, he didn't think he was getting paid good, and one day he stole naked pictures of Priscilla out of Elvis's black box that he took everywhere, and he took money out of the black box and some jewelry. And when Elvis went into his black box and found out that naked pictures of Priscilla was missing, jewelry was missing, and some money, he questioned everybody. Who took it? Who took it? You take it? You take it? And eventually they found out that it was Hamburger James because he didn't show up. And he was supposed to go on his badge, got up there and scared Hamburger James to death. And even after all of that, because Elvis had a kind heart, he still gave Hamburger James money and said, I hope you're going to be okay. After he scared him to death.
Okay, so let's go into now, why did the king of rock and roll, 42 years old, still the prime of his life, walk away and leave it all behind?
I'm not famous. I wouldn't know why in my degree, but I bet you if I had suffered like he did, he couldn't even go to a restaurant. He couldn't even go into the whole thing. He didn't know. Oh, that's the way it's been for over 20-something years. Wouldn't you want to get away from the limelight if people were pulling on you and bugging you and making it that you couldn't even go to a normal restaurant?
He couldn't go anywhere after faking his death, right?
Well, there are so many Elvis impersonators out there that it just doesn't matter anymore, man.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't think somebody, I mean, if he
you could go to Elvis Week in August and you could probably bump right into him, and how would you know?
But I mean, this was the king. You don't think, I mean, somebody would have
he learned when he was away. As my source told me, he learned while he was away in the beginning to grow a beard, to keep quiet. His job to make sure that when he did go into the FBI, that he didn't give away too much. He grew a beard and he let things lie for a few years. He said about a decade.
So
it was in 1987 when people started,
I actually remember that. So he waited a decade before he went out?
He waited a decade before people quit asking questions, and he nobody recognized him anymore. No one cared. Plus, he lived up there in the north and also in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where no one would ever suspect Elvis to be.
So that Burger King sighting or McDonald's sighting at the
that was him. He swears up and down it was him. His favorite hamburger is Burger King.
So that one was real.
That one's real. I can't deny that one.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, because I'm
Also,
actually.
if you look on YouTube after we talk, there's a lady telling her story about how she confronted him in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Well, I remember that.
She was telling the truth. And the thing that he said to her when she left was, yeah, well, jail if you fake your death. So,
okay, so he walked away.
mm-hmm.
Decade later,
he walked away. I don't blame him. A lot of people wouldn't have blamed him if he just walked away and didn't have to use the fake death thing. But the thing was, it was a situation that made him have to use the fake death. He wouldn't have used the fake death if it was just walking away. He could have walked away at any time. Okay. The fake death was some mafia members bought one of Elvis's planes, and they were fraud, and they were getting in trouble. And the FBI needed Elvis's help to testify against them, and he was getting death threats. He wouldn't have left if he didn't have to leave. He had to leave. It had nothing to do with, I'm going to walk away from my stage life.
Hold on 1 second. Okay. So you said the mafia bought one of his planes, and what happened then?
He was supposed to, well, the mafia bought one of his planes, but there was some fraudulent thing that happened during the purchase of that plane. And the FBI needed Elvis's help to be a witness, to testify against the Frederick Peter Pro, the guy who bought the plane. And the Frederick Peter Pro was an associate of Gotti, John Gotti. And I didn't believe a lot of this. But when I first started doing this stuff like 3 years ago, and I started my own Facebook group, the craziest thing happened to me, Chris. I started getting Gottis trying to come into my group. And it started freaking me out. I even told my friend Brandon, who was an owner of another Elvis is Alive group, he told me that they've tried to infiltrate the groups for years because they're still trying to find Elvis. They don't believe he's dead either. So, as well as anyone, mafia holds grudges. They don't stop that grudge thing.
So he testified against the mafia?
Yes, he did. The Gottis. Yep, he did. And it shows him testifying. It shows that a witness by the name of John Burroughs testifies August 17th. A little close. 1977, and he was shown wearing a DEA tracksuit during his testimony. I've been told.
He ever testified then before that?
No. He had to fake his death in order to do so.
Okay.
I mean, that's the story that was told to me, and that's the stuff that I was looking up about probably 10 years ago because I was asking the same questions you're thinking in your head. But when you start asking those questions around online, you can get mixed up with the wrong people.
So
it's to talk about the Gottis.
Well, I mean, but they still wouldn't be looking for him, this long, right? I mean, they would have gave up after a few years.
Well, the 3 people he put in prison for life, their families are still a live group. So why are they doing that?
I'm sorry, you cut off with me right there.
Well, the question, the thing that makes me wonder is, I think that they would let go grudge, but
what's that? You said the 3 people went to prison. What now?
The 3 people that went to prison, the 3 mafia members that went to prison, their family members are still trying to infiltrate the Elvis Alive groups right now. How do you explain that? Why? After all these years, I keep asking myself the same question. I've asked all my friends in these Elvis Alive groups. I've been an administrator for 3 years, and I've seen people that try to pass through my group that it's just like, what? Things I can't even imagine. I have seen things and I've heard things that just freak me out.
Well, what could he have known?
Sometimes I can't talk about too much because.
What would he have known to?
Well, I'll tell you what. How about this? You want the main question answered? I'll get it answered for you. Could he have known? Why don't we do another show where I'm more prepared and I'll tell you exactly through the horse's mouth.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So we'll skip that right now.
This can't be our only interview. There's just so much story, Chris.
Yeah. So what happened after he went away for a while? I mean, he came back and stayed. I mean, did they move him all over? Did he live all over the United States? I mean, where else he lived at since he left?
All right. When the timeline he tells me is this: when he got on the black helicopter behind Graceland in August 16th, 77, they took him to a private airfield outside of and he went on another helicopter and they took him to Hawaii, where he got cleaned up his body and started getting used to his new identity. So he stayed in Hawaii for a few years. And I have a picture of him that someone caught when he was at Hawaii during that time. I have a picture took of him in 1980.
Okay.
And not many do, but I have that picture. And I don't know how you can show pictures doing these unless you can like do links below or something, because I don't know if it'll clear up on here.
Yeah, we'll come back and we'll do one.
Okay, so after Hawaii, just saying, a few years after Hawaii, because he loved Hawaii. Nobody bothered him when he went to Hawaii. Even when he was famous, nobody bothered him when he went to Hawaii. He loved it there. So after he got clean of all the pills and felt better and got used to his new identity, which was John, he moved to Kalamazoo, which he Michigan to this day.
Right. I lost you right there. You said he moved to Kalamazoo and what now?
He lived in Kalamazoo, Michigan for 14 years. But people begin to talk about him to this day. John Burroughs
lived in Kalamazoo for 14 years. Okay. Did he came back to Graceland after that?
No, he never came back to Graceland. He would come to visit, but he never thought that place as his house ever again.
Oh, really? So he doesn't live there now?
He felt the same way Lisa Marie feels about it. It's just a walking mausoleum, even though there's no Fear of the Dead.
So those stories and pictures, that's not true then of him being back there.
Well, there are pictures, but he visits, but he doesn't stay there. He doesn't sleep in that room up there. He doesn't stay there. He has places with the witness protection program that they put him in when he visits. He don't stay at Graceland. As far as I know, he visits. He's not the bearded dude you're always seeing. He's completely different than what people picture him of being. But he doesn't stay at Graceland. No, he visits.
Okay, so why would Elvis, with all the security he had, Memphis Mafia entourage, and what the FBI could provide him, why would he have to go into hiding? I mean, he could have enough guns to protect him.
Guns have nothing to do with it. He was still scared because the fact is, you can know all the karate moves you want, but you can never run fast enough from a gun. And his gun is fine, but how many other guns does these people have? I mean, a human being, man. I'd have been scared. Can I cuss on this show? I'd have been scared shitless.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough.
I mean, you got FBI after your butt, or do you think your gun, whatever your gun, is going to help you?
I thought the FBI was protecting him.
They are protecting him after he faked his death. They didn't protect him until he signed a waiver saying, I will testify against these people and fake my death.
Okay. All right. So I'll save that question for when you come back.
I would love to come back. There are some things I know that you'll feel better about if he can give me if he can give me what he wants you to know. Like, I can tell you better.
Okay. So now people are going to be sitting there listening, and I've got to ask this. What about his diet? Because the
Little bad feedback for some reason. Video stop.
Oh, okay. People are going to be listening. They're going to say, oh, come on, his diet. So what about his diet? I mean, did he have these fried whatever sandwiches?
He did. He did, and he hated it afterwards because he told me now he has a heart condition. He has 3 stents. You know what stents are? He's had to have 3. He's had a heart attack. It was I don't remember the complete date because I can't quote it, but I'm just going to say he did have a heart attack a few years ago. He got stents put in, and he was told to lay off the fried food. So he hates that, but he said moderation is key.
I mean, but to be up in your mid to late 80s, that's pretty good though, right? I mean,
well, he had a heart attack. He told me he had the heart attack when he was in his 70s.
That's still, to be that age.
But as you know, though, he didn't always eat like that. Most of the time he ate like that because he was high on his pill medication.
So what the lady that cooked for him, I heard her say that he had a dozen eggs for breakfast and a whole slab of bacon.
She would cook them. That don't mean he ate all dozen of them, but yeah, and he was burnt bacon. He loved his bacon almost burned. And he loved his fried peanut butter banana sandwiches, and he also loved his melons because he had a sweet tooth, and popsicles. But the fact remains, I mean, you're thinking he should have had a heart attack way before he hit 70, but I don't have his medical chart. And people said even when he died and they said it was a heart attack, that he was healthy. He shouldn't have had a heart attack, So it just remains, we don't know his full medical history. Even his doctors were hiding it from folks. So I do know for a fact he had a twisted bowel, because when you take pain medication like that, you have problems going to the bathroom. Well, that can be fixed with surgery and change your diet and don't take any more pain medication. So I bet that twisted bowel was fixed years ago.
Did his lady friend then and wife and daughter and father, they're all in on this?
His daughter didn't know until she was old enough to sign an NDR, as far as I'm told, and she didn't find out till she was 20.
Okay, what about his first wife and
his ex-wife?
I'm sorry.
That's a big thing. He wants ex in front of that. He's not too happy with her. His ex-wife signed in India, and she knew about it since a couple of months after he died. See, did you ever hear about a pool house photo that came out in like 1979?
I do remember that, yes.
Okay. That pool house photo that has been tested by Kodak, that is not been altered, is Elvis. And that's when his ex-wife found out he was alive. He had to tell her a photo was took. And that would say Christmas of 77 is when that picture was took. So she knew pretty early on, but she had to sign an NDR.
So who was he visiting when he came back in 79?
He was getting the rest of his stuff.
Oh, okay.
He was getting the rest of his. He was getting the rest of his stuff, and he thought staying at the pool house would not be so. They weren't doing tours there yet. It was just his house, but he thought staying in the pool house would be like incognito, but it didn't work. Someone snapped a photo. But he was only there a couple of days, and he said he was there to get the rest of his things that he really needed, that he didn't have. And then,
then somebody snaps a photo.
And then someone took a photo, but they sent it to Kodak, and Kodak tested it and said it wasn't altered. So.
Yeah, it was. So,
and I have that photo too, if you need that that with the other one I was talking about.
Okay. So where's he at now?
The most funniest place you could ever think for a Southern man to go. Freaked me out when I thought about it.
Massachusetts. I mean, I'm a Southern boy. I mean, you could have. I knew that.
The most craziest place you would think us want to go right now. You know, I mean, the North. Funny. He lives in the North. He likes it.
Now, how did you get picked by him to?
Oh God, do we have all night? Okay. I'll make it short and sweet. I've been studying him for 32 years. 32 years on studying, not just the fake death, but everything about his life, his movies, his music, everything, his voice, everything. And 2018, no, I'm going to go backwards. 2016, I watched this movie. It's a documentary called Elvis Found Alive, and it has him sitting in a chair telling you a story. His face is like covered a little bit, but he's sitting in the chair telling you the story like I told you here about the wax dummy, why he had to run, this and that and the other. And it made me start thinking, okay, I just watched this. What am I going to do? So then I started listening to the new music that he came out with, the DVD that came out. It also had a CD with his music for that movie. And that freaked me out because it sounded a lot like him. I mean, I was like, yeah, it could be real. It could be true. And so I went on Facebook, and I never go on Facebook. I'm like, if one place Elvis would not be Facebook. That's trash land, right? I mean, he would more be on YouTube than he would Facebook, but I was just playing around and trying to see what I can find, and I didn't find anything. I was like, okay, whatever. So I quit right then and there. It took me about 3 days, and I was like, he's not here. And I left. I went on YouTube, and I found this guy. His name's Richard Carson. And he had a lot of very interesting things to say. And he said a very good way for people to start, paying attention that it could be true. And one of his videos is Elvis alive and on Facebook? And I was like, no, he's not there. But I thought I'm going to watch the video anyway. So I watched it. It was a 2-part. Okay. And by the last one, the guy had a pep in his step. The guy was acting like he already knew Elvis was alive and on Facebook, like he personally knew him. So here's my mind thinking, well, he's acting like he knows him, so I'm gonna dig deeper. Okay. So the next Facebook and did my Facebook search, I did a researcher attitude. I only went on the Facebook groups that Richard Carson was in. Because I'm like, if he knows him, this guy would be in his group, right? So then I started really searching. I just happened by accident to get into this group of a guy named Brandon Hobbs. He owned a group. I got in. I thought it was cool. I started just making videos about Elvis history. Nothing about his death or nothing, just Elvis history, just having some fun. And one night, about 4 o'clock in the morning, there was this guy that came into the group every day at 4 o'clock in the morning on the dot. All he did was post Elvis history, things that you really have to look for. And I started thinking, could this be the guy? Could this be Elvis? Because I was thinking, could it be? I didn't say it was. I just said, could it be? And he went by the name Sam Thompson, which I thought was funny because his girlfriend, Linda Thompson's brother's name is Sam Thompson, and Sam Thompson was also in his entourage. And I know how Elvis likes to use names, recycle names of people he knows. So I was like, it could be. So I stayed up one night and I chatted with him, and we talked about something, and something came up. It was Howard Hughes. We had a very long conversation about him, and he never told me. He never goes, "Oh yeah, I'm Elvis." No. But I started making notes, and I started putting 2 and 2 together, and then he just writes me, and it started from there. And then Brandon made me an administrator in his group because I was like putting myself out there. And then voila, I get introduced to this guy, Sam Thompson, as being Elvis Presley. And that's how it started.
Have you met him?
I have not really met him, no, but I have talked to him. He has sent me things. We've conversed about things that I don't really even think that some people would even want to ask him about. Like, you've heard of that one woman, Linda Hood Sigmund, who's been talking to this Elvis guy for how long, and it's still a voice changer when he talks to her? They've known each other 30 years. There shouldn't be a voice changer. You should know the guy's voice. It should be in your head. But he used to do phone calls. He can't do them anymore because something bad happened to him with a scammer, and WPP won't let him call anybody anymore. But I mean, I wouldn't do this if I didn't think that my trail got to him. I think my trail got to him. It took me 30 years. I didn't think he would ever be on Facebook. And I was like, everybody would think you're a joke because you're on Facebook. And he goes, well, it's just the easiest way to get online. I mean, it is.
But you've never actually seen him, and you've only talked to him a few times?
I've got his pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I've got his music, recent.
Okay.
And you guys, if you're listening, and I hope you can put a link of that John J.B. Burroughs YouTube channel that I gave you, that's all his songs, Chris.
Yeah, we'll have another come out just for that, because we're definitely going to have another segment. But, okay. So you've got his songs. So tell me, how long has he been wanting to tell this story?
How long has he been telling this story, or how long?
No. How long has he been wanting to tell the story?
For a while. Every time he tries to come out and make a comeback, he tells me that Elvis Presley Enterprises, with the help of his ex-wife, try to keep him down and won't let it come out. It would take money. If he wasn't really dead, their money would be gone. So
you said that he okayed this, so he knows about me. He looked me up there.
He okayed this because I'm not giving out too much information.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but why me though? Why do you say it's okay with me?
Well, you went into Susan's group and called people out and said you want to interview some expert.
Yeah, I've always found the best way is just to go right at it. And
you went right at it, man. And we were all afraid that the piranhas were going to get to you first. So we had a discussion, and everybody said it should be me. So here I am.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of people that came, wanted that.
And you also got a weird anonymous phone call telling you.
Yes.
That's kind of weird.
That I would seek what I was looking for if I went in that group. And then
that is a very weird way of saying it, though. You will seek what you're looking for with Shawna. It's like, oh, that's gonna be okay.
I think it was actually, you will find what you are seeking.
You will find what you are seeking. That's kind of strange, though, Chris. I think it talks like that.
And the number it was it was an unworking number.
That makes it. Sometimes unworking numbers are associated with our special guy.
And this was, at 2:30 in the morning when I'm usually, when I'm working and putting stuff together like this.
Yeah, and usually when my friend, anonymous friend, wakes up for the day.
And it's usually somebody that there's only there's a handful of people that call me at that hour. And
yeah, but not an unregistered number.
Well, I didn't look down at first.
Yeah.
And, I just picked the phone up and yeah. And then I have this and I was like, who is this? And phone picks up and so that was odd. And I was like, okay, I'll check this out. And it's like, well, okay. Well,
like I said, since I've been doing this, since I've been doing this, I have seen and I've heard some crazy stuff, man. But I've basically lived through some crazy stuff. Like, I'll be talking to him through Messenger, and it'll be about the conspiracy or about something really big, like I'll be asking him a question like, what about this or that, or who do I talk to? And I'll get away from the computer for just a minute, not even that, and come back, and everything that we've talked about is erased. His end, my end, like that. I've seen things weird. They don't want us talking about certain things either. They control him as much as they can. He is protected. He can't go anywhere. He's kind of like in the same situation he was before. It's not, he can go places, but with the virus, he really don't want to. But the thing is, he's in according to my special guy source, he says he's in some kind of witness protection program, housing, like for seniors, but it's not really a old folks home. It's just a housing community of people like him that are being protected, that are seniors in WPP. So
okay,
that's what I was told. And he sent me pictures, and he sent me an address, and a lot of the Google Maps stuff he sent me is kind of strange, because all of the pictures, like sometimes the picture itself, the address is like faded off on purpose because they don't want us to know the exact address he's at. It's
interesting.
weird.
Very interesting. So
I'm still doing this story to the end, man. I used to know a reporter, and he told me, when am I going to stop? And I said, I'm never going to stop, man, till I get the dish, till I get the story. And the story is me being immersed into this. So, and I never thought in a million years that I would be a radio show host. I started doing that 3 years ago, too, about Elvis. So we've been doing this, a live thing, trying to tell his story for 3 years.
But how do you know that I wasn't part of the mob?
I researched, plus I gave him your information so he can put his guys on it. He told me that you were not one of those bad guys. Everybody, they have to go through a background check. I did. Everybody else does too.
Mm-hmm.
They do.
But, now, don't call out any names here, but which one of mine did they run?
I only can tell you that everything you've put on social media in the last maybe 3 years, they've probably went through already.
Okay.
They have to. It's called protecting him. He's under protection. They don't play around.
I'm just curious.
I don't know about you. They don't give me that information. I don't know nothing about you. But according to him, he does. You're good. So we're good.
I mean, I'm sure, that there was it's not hard to run. I mean, I call, I can, I know how to get things done, need be. If you know the right people to call, to find out,
If you do, if you know the right people. But, I mean, all I have to say is, I wouldn't do this if I didn't believe, man. I have seen some crazy shit. I have witnessed some crazy stuff on this trail. And I can't get it away, but I've seen stuff. And everybody that works with me, I have about 5 people that work with me to get our radio show going. I got a graphic artist. I have a co-host. I've got promotional people. I've got people that work with me that have seen the same things. And it's like, if this guy isn't Elvis, if this guy is just some weirdo across seas somewhere, just saying, then this guy is in some heavy technical stuff, because I've seen things you can't do. So, on Messenger, and how things have happened to us in our group, how our groups were infiltrated by the mob. I mean, the mafia. It's just some weird stuff.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I
And
can't
I'm
explain it all because,
well, don't worry. I'll have you back. So I'm gonna, we're definitely
yeah,
have another segment.
there's too much. There's not enough time. I could talk to you all
Yeah,
night, but we've already
I'm
been
gonna have to
doing
break
this
it down.
2 hours.
Yeah, and I'll have to break this down. So I I think I will cut it. For the show for this time, and we'll start planning on another one.
Or you can play the whole 2 hours and we just do
Well,
some.
no, I will play the whole 2 hours. That's what I mean. Yeah, this video will definitely go up. That's what I mean. I'll bring you back because we're gonna have to have some follow up stories on this.
But like I said, if you have any very big questions that only he can answer, let me have them and I'll give you it back because I am not a psychic, so I can't really completely answer.
I'm gonna ask him what he testified about. That he sent him to jail over. I'd like to know that.
Yeah.
Did he ever? You said the girl didn't know that she was 20. Did he ever visit her secretly? What
are you talking about? The girl that was 20? Did he ever visit her secretly? His daughter. Oh, yeah. They visit even to this day, but she can't do it.
Before she got 20.
Yeah, they can't do it that much because the paparazzi follows her everywhere. As you know, it would be so hard. They have to secretly meet, like when it's Elvis week and she's already there, or in Hawaii and she's already there. That kind of stuff. They can't just meet.
Ask him what he thought about her marrying Michael Jackson.
I did already.
Have you? What was his reply?
Hey, it's her life, but he wouldn't have picked him. He's a fan of some of the music, but he's not a fan of how Michael Jackson had controversy. The station accusations and stuff kind of got him a little like, why did he pick him? I don't know.
Ask him if he regrets testifying and walking away. And ask him if he liked this program. And, let's see.
Or you could just send me a list of questions in Messenger because mine just forget some of them.
Yeah, I'll come up with a list for you for that. And but it's been wonderful, this first one. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, no problem. I just, like I said, maybe the next time I can actually give you the list of research that I have proving that I'm alive.
Definitely going to do that on the next one.
I've got probably, if you give me like 15 minutes next time for myself, I can give you all of my research that I've been doing for the years.
We'll do that because I want to do the music and all that stuff too. But
I don't know how we'll do the music. It won't be so easy when we're on camera as it is on the show.
But anyway, I mean, this has been a blast. Thank you very much.
It's been fun.
Yeah. And I guess we'll talk very soon then, won't we?
Yeah, we will. Just like similarly, I was enjoying myself. I was talking about Elvis. It's my element. I always enjoy myself when I talk about him.
All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
You're welcome, Chris. I will talk to you later. And what we say around here is TCB, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.